Hey, there we go. All right, I think we're live here, guys. Good morning. It is Tuesday, April 7th, AD 2020, which, as you guys all know, means Anno Domini, not after death, because that wouldn't work mathematically. Okay. Today, we're going to talk about Napoleon and the end of the French Revolution. End is probably in loose terms there because the revolutionary period in Europe will actually revive itself in the 1840s with changing of monarchies and nationalism, and we'll get to some of that stuff here. Probably next week we'll cover nationalism. Okay, let's talk Napoleon here. If you remember, oh boy, sideways there. If you remember, but hey, what would class be without an interruption from the one and only Coach Bragg? Oh, he hung up on me. I'm gonna call him back real quick. I'm gonna keep talking to you, but I'm gonna call him back. I'm gonna make him listen to this lecture. Okay. If you remember, during the Revolution, Maximilian Robespierre takes over during the Reign of Terror. We're cutting people's heads off left and right. Hey, here's
Yep.
Coach Bragg. See, just like always, Coach Bragg jumps in during class and decides to interject in.
You called me?
You just called me!
Oh, Barrick had my phone.
Oh, well, maybe
So
your
he must have just called you.
Barrett called me. His son called me. All right, I'm hanging up now.
All right, bye, buddy.
Bye. That's silly goose. Anyway, Robespierre takes over during the Reign of Terror. We've got a lot of people being executed, including at the end Robespierre. The Directory takes over the government, not successful at all. People start to lose confidence. There's a power vacuum happening in France during the 1790s. In comes Napoleon. Okay, Napoleon has got a great military background, does a lot of good work there in throughout Europe, and then he goes into Egypt, which we'll talk about here in just a minute, very briefly. In 1799, he stages what's known as a coup d'etat. It's an overthrowing of the government. Names himself the first consul and is approved. Sorry, I moved my computer. Is approved for this role by a vote of the people, known as a plebiscite. Okay, if you remember back to the old Roman days, there were two groups of people. There were the patricians and the plebeians. The patricians were higher class. The plebeians were lower class. A patrician, if you're thinking in terms of your family, okay, there's a patriarch of your family. My dad is the patriarch of the Hess family. Grandpa Hess has died. My dad is the oldest living male. He is the patriarch of that family. I am the patriarch of my family. I'm the oldest male in my immediate family. Your dad would be the patriarch. Maybe your grandparents are still alive. They would be the patriarch. Our society is a male-led patriarchal society. Nothing against women. That's just how things have gone for the last several hundred years after the advent of farming, when women kind of lose their egalitarian status. Okay? And the plebes are the lower class. Some of you may go to West Point someday, may go to the Army. You'll be a plebe that first year. You're the lowest of the low. You're a freshman, which explains why we don't like freshmen. Just kidding, freshmen. We love you, kind of, sort of, sometimes. Before Napoleon becomes emperor, he will attempt to colonize Egypt. Here he is in Egypt in late 1790s. There is the Sphinx before all the dirt was removed and the sand and rock from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of sandstorms and shifting of sand and things from weather patterns. When the French got there, it would not look like it did today. Those pyramids had not been uncovered the way they are. They'd not been cleared off, and archaeology was not really a huge thing the way it is today. That's not always just been a case where people went around digging up old cities and things like that. That wasn't always a study, I should say. He is not hugely successful in Egypt, but by the time he gets back to France, he beats the news back and he's held as a hero. He really doesn't accomplish all of his objectives there in Egypt. He does, however, discover the Rosetta Stone, which, in terms of its lasting impact, is the most important thing he does while he's in Egypt. Okay? There he is crossing the mountains the same way Hannibal did. He took down here at the bottom. Bonaparte's on the same level. Get that off there. Get off there. The same level as see it's covered up. On those rocks there at the bottom, you see the word Bonaparte. Below, you see the word Hannibal. Hannibal crossed the Alps during the Carthaginian Wars. You may recall this or not. Putting him on the same level as those great military leaders of all time. Do a lot of good there in Europe as well in terms of conquering countries. Austria, which is in Central Europe. Prussia. Prussia will essentially become the German Confederation after the end of the Franco-Prussian War. Germany will become a thing, which we don't yet have Germany yet. I've said that a few times this year. Portugal and Spain. He'll eventually lose Portugal. The British will take Portugal back, but he will control Spain for excuse me, for most of his reign. Darn, excuse me. Coronavirus. Maybe I got it. I don't think I got it. You may remember the Continental System, where he's going to take the mainland of Europe here and kind of blockade the British from it. Here are his bright dark blue there. That's his empire. The light blue are states are dependent upon the French government. And then the purple are his allies. You'll notice the British is an enemy, and Russia out here is nothing until he gets his foot involved in it, and then Russia will become an enemy as well. Politically, back home, he does a pretty good job. Napoleon simplifies laws for France, known as the Napoleonic Code, does some education reform, gets rid of the estate system. There's no more first, second, third estate, which, depending on what side of the fence you're on, that's probably a pretty good thing. And then, following in line with Enlightenment ideals in the American Revolution, he allows freedom of religion, which the Directory had done, but prior to that had not been done in France. There was no freedom of religion. In fact, if you go back to the 30 Years' War, there were times where French Protestants, French non-Catholics had been slaughtered, depending on who the king was and what his political views are, which is oftentimes how it works in world history. The religious and political views of your leader will dictate what your country follows. There's no government structure that allows the people to have freedoms, but Napoleon does give his people freedom of religion. Okay, he'll also, what an outfit! Jeez, hey, prom's coming up next year. Look at that, boys. You could wear that. Couldn't dance in it. You'd be sweaty like a big rug. Anyway, okay. Politically, in 1804, daggone, I'm sorry, guys. He will crown himself the Emperor of France, Emperor for life, in 1804. Notice he crowns himself. The Pope is standing there with the crown. Napoleon takes the crown from the Pope's hands and puts it on his own head. Political move. He crowned himself. The Pope did not crown him. He is above the Pope. Okay? Here he is crowning his wife. Look at the Pope's looking on like, yeah, that should be my job. Dadgummit. Not very happy there. The church members are not real pleased with Mr. Napoleon. Ha ha ha. The French, eh? Sorry. What about his downfall? He don't look very happy here. His troops look terrible. What is that, mud? No, that's snow. Okay? Napoleon will invade Russia in 1812, and his loss of life is staggering. It is absolutely staggering. Sends off with over 300,000 men and comes back with like 20,000. I mean, it is a massive loss of life. They get into Russia, and the Russians do what's called the scorched earth policy, where they burn all the good things, houses, farms, and they retreat further into Russia. Remember, Russia's huge. Russia has over half the world's time zones. One country. Okay, Russia is huge. Our president would say, huge. Huge. Got a lot of stuff going on in Russia. It's massive. So they do what's called scorched earth policy. They make it all the way to Moscow. They burn Moscow. They realize their supply lines are too long. It's freezing cold. They turn around. They come back. This is during the Little Ice Age. The Little Ice Age has not left the northern hemisphere. Okay, temperatures across the globe were colder in the 19th century, the first half of the 19th century. In Indiana here, you may have grown up and heard about the year without a summer. That's 1816. That's not that far away from here. Okay, temperatures were incredibly cold. Okay, horses were being cut open and their skin, their hide, being patched up on uniforms. The horses just kept walking because the wounds would cauterize instantly. It was so cold. Men were dying overnight. They'd sleep and never wake up because they froze to death. Every now and again, you'll read a story about where someone in Europe is doing some project, some building or construction project of some kind, and they'll find a mass grave of Napoleon's troops. It does happen every so often. Not as common anymore, but it has happened in the past. And once in a while, kind of like World War II bombs, you'll see a story about they dug up and there this mass bodies were, or a bomb was, and it becomes a news story. Okay? There will be a group of people, a group of European powers that will defeat Napoleon. He will be sent to Elba Island, just off the coast of France. He will return for 100 days. It's known as the 100 Days. He'll be defeated again at the Battle of Waterloo, where the British will massacre Napoleon. And he will be sent to St. Helena Island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, kind of between Africa and South America. And that's where he'll spend the rest of his days. Now, his house that he's living on, it ain't some rundown shack. It's pretty awesome. It's a very nice house. He was living very lavishly. He lived a really good life the rest of his days. Died of old age. I think he caught cancer when he was an older man and died there. He's now buried in Paris. It's a beautiful tomb. Okay, that's a very quick, very fast kind of run through of Napoleon's rise and fall. I know we're kind of in a speed up mode here, trying to get through some stuff this year. So that's Napoleon. Stay tuned for more stuff next week. We'll see you guys later.